Bonding. Oh, here we go. I forgot we had a definition. Physically connect two conductive objects together with a bond wire to eliminate a difference in static charge potential between them. So you got a guy here and a guy here. You have a wire between them. Here's ground. Bonding is not the ground. Bonding is conductive thing to conductive thing. Okay, you must provide a bond wire between containers during flammable liquid filling operations unless a metallic path between them is otherwise present. So, if you have a metal, some kind of cross connect in between them where they form one tank and you actually have metal screwed into one and screwed into the other, they're bonded through that metal pipe. Okay, PVC does not bond things. Okay, metal does. Grounding eliminates the difference in static charge potential between conductive objects and ground. So there's your diagram back, there's your two tanks, the bond wire, and then the ground wire goes from one of those to ground. It can be any part of that to ground. Okay. Although bonding will eliminate a difference in potential between objects, it will not eliminate a difference in potential between these objects and earth unless one of them is connected to earth with a ground wire. Okay, ventilation. This is another learning objective we talked about. Okay, I think I put the actual numbers, but ventilation, you need to have ventilation. What does that do as far as ignition source, or as far as ignition fuel? Doesn't let it build up, right? So it keeps it to where it, when things will burn or explode, they have these limits. You guys have some of you guys have heard of lower explosive limit and upper explosive limit, LEL and UEL. Well, there's a flammable limit also, a lower flammable limit and an upper flammable limit. If you're below this concentration of that material or that whatever, there's not enough there for it to burn. If you're above that, it also won't burn or explode because there's probably not enough oxygen there or it's just too concentrated. So there's limits on when certain components or certain things will burn. Lower explosive and upper explosive limits, lower flammable and upper flammable limits. Okay? So what ventilation does is you need to have adequate ventilation. Remember those words, adequate ventilation. You probably will have to write those again. Adequate ventilation, and you need to, it has to maintain below 1/4 of the lower flammable limit. It has to be enough ventilation to prevent buildup to 1/4 of the lower flammable limit. That's a better way to say it. I don't know if I wrote that in there or not. That should be on your, look on your handout and see if I included those.
C on 5.
Yeah.
I had to.
To reduce the potential for ignition.
Oh yeah, you did. Number 6 on the back.
Number 6, list the ventilation requirements. Reduces potential for ignition of flammable vapors by preventing buildup. Must be sufficient to prevent accumulation. Accumulation of significant quantities of vapor-air mixtures in concentration over 1/4 of the lower flammable limit. So you got to have enough to keep it from accumulating. Okay, storage fundamentals. This is storing stuff in your area. Make sure that things are compatible. Okay, don't store water next to sulfur, right, or potassium or that kind of stuff. Don't store water next to that. Isolate and separate incompatible materials. By storing them in another area, having enough insulation between them, not temperature insulation, but things that will keep them from reacting. Boxes or partitions or barriers or something. Make sure you keep them apart from each other. A different storage locker is preferable if they have to be in the same area. Must not limit the use of normally used areas, so doors, windows, exits, that kind of stuff. Whoops. If they're in an office, okay, can't store them there if it's an office building that's used unless it's the amount that's necessary for operation of that office. So you can't have 10 gallons of paint thinner in your office, okay? If you have a shop that, you know, or if you have an office that uses, I don't know, vodka or something like that to get through the day, you can't store anything more than what you're going to use for that specific purpose. And there are some things that can be stored. You what?
It's not good. You can't put that in a beer in the fridge anymore.
I think beer will burn. But some of the other stuff will. Storage must be in closed metal containers inside a cabinet, and safety cans or a storage room. Okay? That's a picture of the inside of a storage room. Shelves, all the different stuff on there. Looks like you got some labels. Safety cans for storage and transfer. Approved container of not more than 5 gallons capacity. Has anybody seen these cans? Okay, everybody ought to, I mean, if you've been in any kind of industry, you'll see these cans somewhere. These are the safety cans. Spring closed lid and spout cover. So you have to physically manipulate. Usually you take that handle and pull it down like this, but there's other types. There's a couple that are trigger operated where you pull the trigger and it pops the lid up. But you mechanically have to do something to open that lid, that's part right there, and then when you let go of that, it mechanically shuts. Okay? And it's got to be sealed enough to keep spark from going down in there. Safely relieves internal pressure when exposed to fire. So if that thing has a fire, then it has to have relief on there that will keep pressure from building up to where it's going to explode and keep fire from going down inside. Flame arrestor screen, that guy there. Prevents fire flashback into can content. So that's what we're talking about. That keeps the fire. When that thing opens, it'll keep it from going down inside the can. Now, there's a little bit of liquid level in there. It might not prevent it from there, but it'll keep it from getting into the can. The flash arrestor, double wire mesh construction, large surface area, rapid dissipation of heat. Okay, you guys have all seen this, right? Where is this located at for our place? Has anybody not looked inside it?
No way, there's fire in there.
Yeah. Okay, these cabinets here, not more than 60 gallons of class 1 and or class 2 liquids. So as long as they're compatible, you can store them in the same locker. But if it's class 1 or class 2, not more than 60 gallons. Class 3, not more than 120 gallons. Okay, so why is it less for class 1 and 2 than class 3?
More volatile.
Flash point's lower, right? Flash point, so you want less stuff there to store, to build up. Must be labeled flammable. Keep fire away. That's the fire bad thing. Doors on metal cabinets must have a 3-point lock, and the door sill must be raised at least 2 inches above the bottom of the cabinet. Why a 3-point lock?
So all 3 doors or well, both doors are always locked at one point.
It keeps the doors from opening, okay, from buckling due to pressure or exploding outward. It doesn't keep, it helps keep them from opening. Okay, why the raised sill? Spill, right? Something inside leaks out, keeps it from running out onto the floor. Okay? So you guys have all seen those. Fire control. Suitable fire control devices such as hoses, small hoses, or portable fire extinguishers must be available where flammable or combustible liquids are stored. Okay? No open flames and smoking. Materials which react with water must not be stored in the same room with flammable or combustible liquids. Okay? Why? That's right. If you put a fire out, then you have this reactive metal or material that's going to react with water, and use water to put the fire out, then you've got another problem. So don't store them in the same area that has those type liquids or those type of materials. Transferring. This is starting to be an issue. They talked about this at my OSHA training. How we're not. They're starting to get more and more OSHA violations for transfer of flammable liquids. Okay, there's only 4 methods of transferring flammable liquids. I think I put this on your handout too. Through a closed piping system. That means it's not open to any ignition source, right? From safety cans. So you have to pour from a safety can into something else. Has the spring load, the flash arrestor, has the relief valve. By gravity through an approved self-closing safety faucet. Okay? Self-closing obviously means when you let go, it turns off. Okay? Gravity means there's no air pressure, nothing forcing anything through. And a safety pump, which is just a little pump that's gets grounded and all that kind of stuff. Here's a couple pictures of a whole bunch of stuff. There's the drum, a metal drum. That's a self-closing faucet right there. You have to actually, it's like a trigger, you squeeze on it, it opens up. When you let go, it shuts itself off, okay? Some of the other things we talked about, there's a safety can. So right here we're gravity draining through a faucet that's self-released, or self-closing, into a safety can with the handle that's self-closing, right? We have to engage that. We have our can grounded through here. That's just on the rim of the can, it's just a little clamp, and then a wire goes to ground, and then we connect a can or a wire from the barrel to the can itself. So we've got a bonding wire, we've got a grounding wire, we've got a safety faucet, a safety can, and all the applicable things that go with it. On top of it, looks like a safety flammable locker, storage locker. Okay, and also there's a safety vent in the drum, which is out of the picture. Here's the safety pump. There's the same, you can see everything the same. That's the bonding, or the grounding I mean. There's the bonding right there from the can. The safety pump, I'll just read it to you because I've never really used one. Faster and safer than using a faucet. Spills less likely. No separate safety vents in drum required. Installed directly into the drum bung opening. And some pump hoses have integral bonding wires. Okay, so I think that's just a standard pump you see on top of your diesel thing in the back of your pickup truck. Okay, I know if you grew up on a farm, you probably used them. Connor's probably used them, even though he's sleeping through this.
Yeah.
Waste and residue. It says keep to a minimum, store in covered metal receptacles and disposed of daily. We don't really have a waste collection facility here, okay? ISU does, but we don't. How we don't store, anything we store that's waste, or actually we don't really store anything that's waste. What we store is product that's in their original containers. We're not allowed to transfer it into other containers except for things that are for that specific and short-term use. But if you're going to store stuff, you can store it in a drum. The problem with storing things in a drum is if you have multiple things, you have to ensure that they're not reactive when you mix them together. Okay, so there is issues with drums. Disposal cans, you have the same issue. It's got a, where's my pointer? It's got the same type handle as a safety can. It spring shuts. It's got the flash arrestor that drops down inside of it. And it would be labeled waste. But again, you have the thing with mixing. And then you have the oily rag, or it's got a foot. You guys have all seen these cans too, right? Foot engaged, raise the top up when you let go. Anything that has flammable liquids, it's going to be safety. So you have to physically engage it, and it's going to manually spring return. Okay, these are just some things